Greetings and salutations. This is the voice of Loquacious of Herd, bringing you his Afterthoughts on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 7, Episode 3, titled A Flurry of Emotions. I heartily suggest you find and watch the episode itself, sans commentary, before proceeding with either this Afterthoughts review or viewing my full reaction, which is hosted at the link in the description. Please support the official release. Be warned, this Afterthoughts review will contain spoilers for the episode itself. With that out of the way, on to the review. Here we have another episode in the vein of learning life lessons, one whose themes overlap with some earlier episodes. But this episode isn't simply a retread of past ground. It's a fresh take and an exploration of broad themes of work-life balance, life with small children, and most importantly, overcommitting oneself. We open with Nurse Redheart speaking with Twilight about how one of Cheerilee's classes has all come down with horsey hives and wound up in Ponyville General, where they could use a bit of cheering up. Especially since this happened on School Picture Day, which has to cement it as worst day ever in the young lives of some of these poor colts and fillies. Twilight is more than happy to bring presents and snacks and story time to the bedridden junior classfuls. It's just the sort of thing that the Princess of Friendship does to help out around town. Also, it had been so long since Redheart had lines that it took me a while to remember she had speaking roles in Applebuck season during the whole Baked Bads incident.
We came as soon as we heard.
Thank you, Twilight. We need all the help we can get.
As well as in the opening of Baby Cakes.
Shh. The babies are trying to sleep.
But I was just... Shh.
Shh.
Considering those lines were delivered back in Seasons 1 and 2, respectively, I think Ashley Ball did a great job of keeping Redheart's voice surprisingly consistent across these widely scattered appearances. So, an unexpected addition to Twilight's day, but while the scheduling will be tight, there don't seem to be any real problems with getting everything together for a goodwill visit to Ponyville General's children's ward that afternoon, as long as everything goes smoothly, knock on wood. And speaking of knocking on wood, hello, Royals! Cadence, Shining Armor, and Flurry Heart have just dropped by Twilight's castle, unexpected and unannounced, with the frazzled parents looking to Auntie Twilight for a bit of emergency babysitting. Instant conflict. There's no way Twilight's going to say no to spending some time with her beloved niece, but she also really wants to help out with the sick foals at the hospital. Time for Twilight to learn the particular pitfalls of double booking oneself, especially when you add a young child into the mix. So before the credits roll, the direction the episode will take has become clear to me. Twilight's time spent with Flurry Heart would detract from her ability to prepare for her visit to the hospital, or, should she actually make it there, her ability to give the six foals the attention they deserve. Meanwhile, her preparations for the hospital helping would detract from the quality time she'd agreed to spend with Flurry Heart. Twilight would act with the best of intentions, but clearly things wouldn't work out as well as she hoped for all concerned. As I predicted, this will end in tears. The joy in such a relatively simple, straightforward, and obvious plot is seeing how it unfurls. Even deducing the route the story would likely take, there's still great enjoyment to be had in kicking back for the ride and watching how things inevitably go downhill. Also, there were a couple of ways they could potentially resolve the whole impending mess, so I still found myself curious as to how it would all end up. What friendship lesson, or rather life lesson, were they going for here? In addition, the Season 7 episodes thus far have been heavy on character. Lots of internal development and exploration of the individual ponies themselves. I feel they've done a good job in this department, and this was another opportunity for the season to shine. And did it ever. Twilight, Cadence, Shining Armor, Spike, Cheerilee, Spearhead, and most especially Flurry Heart were so delightful in character, so well developed, so humorous and sweet, and on point, that I have to give kudos to everyone involved, writing, animation, and voice acting. Flurry Heart in particular was amazing. Not only did they give the little alicorn wonderful amounts of personality, but I loved the personality that they gave her. We return from the credits to some extra adorable moments of Twilight being affectionate with Flurry Heart, and giving her gifts, and playing games with her, while Cadence and Shining Armor discuss the reason for their impromptu visit. Twilight is largely distracted through this, and who can blame her? Playing bear dolls with a giggly, growly Flurry Heart is just so sweet. Cadence and Shining Armor want to attend a pop-up art show at the Ponyville Cafe featuring the work of one of Shining Armor's old friends from the Royal Guard, a stallion named Spearhead. And while Spike might not remember his name, because, as he said...
Honestly, all of your friends' names are very similar.
Well, Spike, if you and Twilight don't remember him by name, surely you will remember his face. I'm quite sure he's in this picture here. So, the royal couple wants a bit of a break to spend the afternoon doing something other than looking after their little one. And while not exactly art enthusiasts, they're happy to spend some time supporting Shining's unique and distinctive friend from Canterlot. The royal couple's frazzled state, indicated not only by their ragged look, but through some delightful delivery of lines, unnecessary repetition on Shining's part, a few verbal missteps on Cadence's part, both caught after the fact, would seem to be the result of their enthusiastic embrace of their parenting roles on top of their other responsibilities. I approve of this, although I would like it even better if the show ever explicitly addressed that Cadence and Shining Armor were staying so very involved and active in Flurry Heart's life as a matter of personal choice. These two parents are royalty, after all. They have a crystal palace full of servants and guards. They have the baby's crystaller, Sunburst, on hand to provide babysitting assistance and help to both watch and teach the young filly. Midnight feedings, irregular sleeping schedules, cleanup of Flurry's messes. These are things which Cadence and Shining could theoretically have handled by a decent-sized staff of other ponies back in the Crystal Empire. If they did so, they'd likely be much better rested, and they wouldn't need Twilight to take Flurry off their hooves for an afternoon. So, necessary for the plot? Yes. Amusing? Certainly. Out of character for their social stations? Not necessarily. I can easily imagine that Cadence and Shining Armor simply love their new role as parents and aren't willing to delegate any of it, even the messy, sleep-denying, occasionally aggravating bits. That they wind up frazzled from time to time as a result is a price they would gladly pay for the joy they get from their family time. I can also easily imagine that they would have concerns for their young daughter, that Flurry Heart grow up with a stable, supporting, loving family around her, to help raise her in as, well, normal a familial dynamic as possible, so that when older, Flurry feels both more connected to her immediate kin and less singled out as special and unique. Flurry Heart's going to get more than enough of that in her life just due to her being born royalty, never mind being an alicorn. There will likely come a day when a pony like Flurry Heart will need to feel she really belongs, and isn't isolated and alone by virtue of her social station and magical gifts. Giving her this sort of doting parental attention, especially since it's not something that Cadence and Shining Armor actually must do, will hopefully give the young alicorn a good foundation on which to build a life that will include privilege as well as duty, to help her grow into a ruler who will be better able to empathize with her people because of her own childhood experiences. We certainly don't need another spoiled royal brat a la Prince Blueblood running around thinking she's better than every pony else, especially not one who's also an alicorn. Still, while there are plenty of potential reasons for the surprisingly normal parenting strategies of Cadence and Shining Armor, as I mentioned, I would like it if the show would openly address these reasons. A quick exchange with Spike one day, starting with the dragon asking an extra frazzled Cadence who is in the midst of dealing with a Flurry Heart mess, "Don't you have ponies to do this sort of thing for you?" And a clear reply that while she does, she prefers to be hooves on with her daughter. Why, this would go a long way to making scenes like the one playing out in Twilight's foyer less subtly out of place. Astute viewers will note I've devoted considerable review time towards picking at this singular nit. The reason for this? The episode is so delightful, sweet, humorous, and well presented that this really very minor issue remains my sole criticism. They're doing such a good job so far this season. So back to the story. Twilight's been left with her barely out-of-infancy niece, a pile of diapers, several jars of mashed peas, and Flurry's Whammy, a whimsical stuffed snail that is the foal's favorite toy, something of a combination security blanket and pacifier. Twilight has things to do. First thing, play with her niece. Flying games pretending to be bears chasing one another about. Adorable. It also helps show bits of Flurry's character. The filly is pre-verbal. She can't really speak, but she clearly has considerable intelligence, coupled with a high degree of empathy and social awareness. She understands quite well, even if she's not yet mastered the art of putting her own thoughts into words that other ponies can understand. Through facial expressions, body language, noises, and attempts at imitation, Flurry is quite capable of holding up her end of a conversation. Flurry Heart loves her Aunt Twilight and is delighted to spend time with her. They can play and do all sorts of fun things. This is what Flurry expects from her interactions with her aunt, and it is also what Twilight just signed on for by agreeing to babysit for the afternoon. More subtle nuances, like Twilight having other duties to attend to, not exactly the sort of thing a baby, even a particularly precocious one, would pick up on right at first. Also, this incident helps serve as a distinctive break from the last parents must leave their child with some pony story we've had, specifically Baby Cakes. There's no temper tantrum or upset at the departure of the parents. Flurry's cool with spending some real quality time with Twilight. No separation anxiety here. Up until this point, I'd had a lingering back of my mind concern that this episode might wind up being some sort of Baby Cakes 2.0, a largely point-for-point retelling and polishing of a previous plot. It's not, and this pleases me. Playtime ends with Twilight being a bit too scary for Flurry Heart. Flurry hides behind her wings and a magic bubble, having gotten a little too into the whole chased by bears game. And while Twilight hadn't meant to be scary, sometimes a big, loud giant of an adult can be quite unintentionally terrifying to a small child, even when the adult in question isn't really upset about anything. This is some of the most adorable foreshadowing the show's ever pulled off. Post-play is snack time. Flurry Heart loves her some mashed peas. Less for the flavor and more for their ballistic and artistic properties. Meanwhile, we get to see Cadance in shining armor at the art show. A modern art show. Yeah, I know that look. Even as someone who likes art, from the standpoint of an interested amateur, modern and postmodern art can provoke that reaction from me too. Although Spearhead? I take back all the sarcastic and unkind thoughts I had about the cut-and-paste nature of Royal Guards from my earlier comments. Dude Bro modern artist is great. His unironic enthusiasm for his somewhat less than stellar work is engaging. Here's a stallion that you'd never think of as having a hobby like painting or sculpture, but these are actual passions of his, and he's got a good take on art.
But hey, who's to say it's not art? Art can be anything that speaks to you. It changed my world.
Art as that which provokes an emotional response. As a general concept, art is a way for someone to express imaginative or technical skill, the result of which is intended to be appreciated for beauty or emotional power. So, yeah, you go, Spearhead. I have clearly underestimated you as a character. That he exists helps reinforce the idea that even what appear to be identical background characters of no consequence have lives and interests of their own. Again, I very much approve of this aspect of MLP. That they are also using Spearhead to subtly poke a bit of fun at the modern or postmodern art world is just icing on the cake. It also leaves us with Cadance and Shining Armor doing that whole parent thing, where all their conversations seem to spiral back to the subject of their child. While they are enjoying their adult time away from their little one, they are so in tune with their role as parents that every little thing they see serves to remind them of some aspect of their daughter. It's cute. Sometimes a little annoying cute, but cute nonetheless. If I roll my eyes at them, it is with a smile on my face. Back to Twilight. Flurry Heart has clearly got a good grasp on the visual arts herself. On later viewings, I loved how you can clearly see the outlines of Twilight's and Spike's heads in the non-mashed pea-covered parts of the wall. Spike prods Twilight. Time with Flurry is great and all, but they're now behind schedule for the whole visiting sick foals thing they kinda sorta promised Nurse Redheart they'd do. So off they tear with 3 stops to make: toys, story, and treats. Flurry's happy to go along for the ride. Of course, it's doubtful she really understands what all the hurry's about. But ponies are rushing, so she'll happily be carried along. At the toy store, she's ready for play again, and she's surprisingly well behaved about asking for fun times with Twilight. Seriously, one of the things that strikes me most about Flurry's character is that she's a really, really well-behaved kid. It seems she grasps the concept that while Twilight is clearly supposed to be spending time with Flurry herself, Twilight has some other grown-up stuff going on and will occasionally need to focus her attention elsewhere. Rather than immediately act up, demanding attention when Twilight's eye is not on Flurry, Flurry just lets it slide, grows bored, and attempts to find ways to amuse herself if Twilight is too busy purchasing toys. Which points to another part of Flurry's character. She's generous, or at least she's not greedy. We saw a touch of this earlier, when a pile of presents fell on her. Flurry was curious about the brightly wrapped boxes, but she didn't try to get into any of them until Twilight encouraged her, and then she only opened the box she was presented with. Here, with a cart full of toys that Twilight has gathered, Flurry is much more saddened about Twilight's sudden distraction than about having the toys removed from her cart. I was halfway expecting Flurry to be upset that Twilight was taking Flurry's toys away, because really, how else would a young child perceive Twilight's actions at the checkout counter? But Flurry didn't, and I found myself impressed. Flurry is clearly much more interested in people, well, ponies, rather than things. Good for her. Of course, Flurry's attempts to return to the race cart game are both successful and crasherific. And again, with the evocative facial expressions. When dug out of the pile of stuffed animals, Flurry's initial expression seems to be all happy and fun, as if to tell the worried Twilight, "It's okay, I'm fine, I'm not hurt, this was fun, can we do it again?" Only Flurry, as young children often do, immediately picked up on the fact that Twilight was upset by this. Flurry's face fell. Had she done something wrong? She hadn't meant to do something wrong. She just didn't know what had gone wrong. And if she had done something wrong, she was sorry for it. Flurry wasn't trying to act out, to make a mess, or to make things harder for her aunt. Flurry was just trying to have a good time. This moment cemented an idea that I'd find running through the rest of the episode, namely, this poor kid. She's trying her best to have a good day, to have fun with her aunt, to be patient in the face of all the distracted rushing about of the adults in her life, rushing about that Flurry doesn't really understand that well. Flurry's trying to be good, she's trying to help, and it's adorable to see such a young foal trying to chip in and do their own tiny, tiny part to make things better for every pony around them. But in spite of Flurry's best efforts, things just keep on going wrong. Even if she can't always tell precisely what has gone wrong, or why it has gone wrong, from Twilight's body language and tone of voice, along with the body language and tone of voice of the other ponies around, young Flurryheart can tell this day is steadily going off the rails in a very unfun manner. Flurry's digging in to try to rescue the situation, and it seems she's helpless to do so. That's an infuriating place to be, even when you're a grown adult, with a better understanding and more polished coping skills. For a kid? I found my respect for Flurry's lack of tantruming grew by leaps and bounds throughout the whole running errands act. Seriously, at her age, I would have been bawling my eyes out halfway through the day. And my parents tell me I was, by and large, a good kid, an easy kid, a helpful kid. Flurryheart? The girl's a saint. Still, Twilight's left cleaning up the messes, and re-cleaning them up organized by color. Twilight is distracted, her attention split between the errands and preparation for the hospital visit, and then the attention she should be paying to Flurryheart. Her occasional moments of interacting with her niece put her further behind with her errands. Her concentration on her errands causes her to miss her niece's growing boredom and impatience, and keep Twilight from being able to either intervene to stop a few minor disasters before they spiral out of hoof, nor to really see how hard Flurryheart is working to make this day happy and fun for every pony. At the schoolhouse we get lovely story fodder. Again, I'm going to have to browse through fiction in a week or two to see who all's written up alien alicorns and space pirate stories. And the reason given for why Twilight must needs borrow a book from Cheerilee are exactly the sort of perfectly reasonable explanation that makes me think the writers could give us reasons for Cadence and Shining's general refusal to use Palace staff to do more of the heavy lifting in looking after their kid. I mean, if they can turn the whole Twilight doesn't have the right book at hoof thing into something super reasonable with such a casual and natural bit of conversation, I'm sure my earlier nitpicking could have just as easily been addressed. Perhaps they will address it in some future episode. Flurry's begun to get a little cranky from the lack of attention. Ah, but her whammy is offered to her, her favorite toy, her security blanket, and for a while she is happy. But Twilight's taking much time trying to decide on what book to do. Even with the whammy, Flurry gets bored. Again, such a good kid. Rather than putting up another fuss, she tries to find something fun to do. And as we've seen before, she apparently likes her some art. Oh, there's a chalkboard and chalk. She knows what to do with that. It's utterly adorable how Flurry draws images of herself, Auntie Twilight, Spike, and the bear dolls. Flurry's made Twilight a gift, a picture of all the fun they had earlier. It was a way for Flurry to say, I loved what we did earlier so much. It was so much fun. Thank you for playing with me then. And could we maybe stop all this seemingly pointless running around and being all worried and stuff, and just go back to having fun again? Flurry hasn't anything like the life experience to understand how scribbling all over Cheerilee's lesson plan was in any way a bad thing to do. But when Twilight sees what's happened, it's clear to Flurry that somehow, in making a loving gift for her aunt, Flurry's messed it up again. Twilight, in her distraction, only sees the mess. She completely misses the super sweet, touching meaning behind the picture. As she erases the blackboard entirely, destroying Flurry's scribbles, I once again found myself looking at the action from the point of view of Flurry Heart, and thinking, that poor kid, she's trying so hard, and it's just not working out today. Well, on to step 3. Growing panic and concern from Twilight, and Flurry's getting quieter in the face of it. Obviously there are problems, and Flurry doesn't want to be a contributor to whatever's going on that's causing her aunt to have such a bad day, and to leave her aunt in a position to ignore happy fun times with Flurry so very much. Also, on the way, Twilight is confirmed for Bae.
And the BAE would never throw in the towel like that.
B-A-E?
Best aunt ever?
At Sugar Cube Corner, we get some lovely callbacks. Pinky's super secret party planning cave, for one. Pinky's facility with remembering multiple questions and answering them in the proper sequence, for another. The Cake Twins being their own brand of adorable, and it's good to see they initially hit it off well with Flurry Heart. Finally, a break from the slow rise of things aren't going so well that Flurry's been watching going on all around her. She can play with the other kids, and with Spike. Twilight can get her adulting done, and everything can be good. Only Pound and Pumpkin start arguing over a toy. Classic kids being kids stuff. Flurry is such a good kid. She knows fighting over things is bad. She knows Twilight is busy. She knows Spike is supposed to be here helping, so she draws the situation to Spike's attention with her gestures and expressions, saying more clearly than words, "Hey, Spike, problem here? You need to do something about this." Spike dives in to try to find a second matching toy. Okay, so he's doing something, but it's not helping the situation right now. So Flurry intervenes. She tries to get Twilight's attention by bopping her with the balloon toy she's taken from the twins. Distracted Twilight remains distracted. So Flurry, in an amazingly mature moment, decides to go all Judgment of King Solomon on the balloon. She rips it in half and gives half to each of the twins. Problem solved, right? Right? Well, Pound and Pumpkin are no longer fighting with each other. Oh no, they've united to get their new common enemy, the evil Flurry Heart, who has destroyed their plaything. Watching Flurry and her protective bubble fleeing the twins' cupcakey wrath, I could once again hear in my mind the sad, confused wail of, I just don't know what went wrong. And of course, by the time Twilight notices what's going on, all she sees is a huge mess with Flurry in the middle of it. None of the build-up, none of Flurry's attempts to help out, to be kind and wise and fix a friendship problem. Just the icing-covered aftermath. Once again, Flurry's efforts to do the right thing have only resulted in the adults around her getting all upset. This poor kid! At the same time, Twilight gets plenty of sympathy from me as well. She's frantically trying to juggle her responsibilities to niece and town's ponies alike, and she simply can't be in two places at once. Twilight really needs to work with Starlight on perfecting that self-duplication spell for times like this. So, while Twilight's trying her best too, it seems like every time she turns around, Flurry's made another mess of things and put her even more behind schedule. That Twilight doesn't take that aggravation out on Flurry is quite commendable in and of itself. On to the hospital. Miraculously, now they're only a little behind schedule. Things seem to be finally quieting down. Presents and treats got delivered. Twilight is able to provide story time to the horsey hive-ridden foals. And I'm just going to guess that either Twilight or Flurry put up an invisible variety of Cadence's magical health bubble. Accidentally exposing Flurry to a children's illness seems like it's not the sort of thing Twilight would actually miss. Oh, and speaking of the story, Gusty and Grogar? Oh, I'm so pleased. Grogar was a Generation 1 My Little Pony villain, and right up there with T-Rex in the whole only in the 80s, surprisingly, violently, scarily weird cartoon villains set. I was extra delighted, mostly because in some rare scribbling about for my own amusement, creative and artistic writings I've done, I had tapped Grogar's myth myself. And not that I expect my gentle viewers are at all interested in any of that, it is available on FimFiction if for some reason you are. But back to Ponyville General. Flurry's finally had enough. Flurry can tell that the crisis appears to be over. Twilight's no longer rushing around all anxious and worried. Every pony's sitting around with cake and toys and listening to Twilight read some story with too many big words and not nearly enough pictures to be interesting for Flurry Heart. Her attempts to tug on Twilight's tail to attract her attention to remind her aunt that there's still a niece here that needs playing with are for naught. And there's only so much joy to be gotten out of Whammy. Flurry's resulting, and surprisingly brief, tantrum is well-deserved. If anything, it's overdue. Kudos to that kid for holding it all together that long. After the sort of day she's had, I feel some wordless screaming about, well, explicative deleted this day, followed by a disgusted facehoof, or head desk? More like head floor, I suppose. Well, it's a response that is justified and entirely appropriate. Unfortunately, in her few seconds of wild flailing about, she managed to knock Whammy out of the room and onto a swiftly departing hospital cart. So exhausted, disgusted, with a look on her face of, whatever, I guess it's time to just deal with being ignored, again, Flurry goes back to playing with Whammy. Only, Whammy's gone. Panic. Understandable, justifiable panic on Flurry's part. A frantic teleportation and levitation-fueled scramble to find it, her precious toy. You know, I wonder if Flurry Heart, like Starlight Glimmer, also has her magic fueled, at least in part, by her emotions. If so, I'd say it would go a long way to explaining the massive and ongoing surge of mystic energy that fuels Flurry's terrified attempts to find Whammy. Of course, those attempts are, let's say, highly disruptive to the hospital. What Flurry needs is for an adult, some pony she loves and trusts, to stop what they are doing and help her, to reassure her with kind words and a loving embrace that all will be well, to set their adult self to finding Whammy, to calm Flurry's understandable panic. But Twilight has once again missed all of that. She and Spike put it together that Whammy's gone, and that Flurry's rushing around causing chaos. But yelling at Flurry about it? Well, it's a very distant second-place solution to Flurry's panic. But given where Twilight's at in this whole scenario, it's the only solution readily available. This poor kid! All of this no good, very bad afternoon. The loss of Whammy, and now the adults are mad at her too? Mad enough to yell and make mean faces? Not play mean, but actually angry mean. Which is, for a kid, something they do pick up on and which is terrifying to them. The giants you depend on for everything in your life, are pissed. Weeping in her safety bubble, hiding from the scary adults, this is exactly what one would expect. And Twilight suddenly sees that she herself has been one of the main factors in everything that's gone wrong. She wasn't able to give both Flurry Heart the attention she needed and complete her other obligations at the same time. By trying to split the difference, Twilight's done a disservice to every pony involved, and most of all to Flurry Heart. Flurry Heart's a good kid. The bad things that happened? Not really her fault. Especially since every one of Flurry's missteps could have easily been prevented if only Twilight herself had been paying the slightest bit of attention. Specifically paying her full attention to what was going on with Flurry Heart, as she should have. Twilight apologizes, and Flurry Heart accepts. It's also sweet. The situation at the hospital is wrapped up. Twilight and Flurry return to the castle for some actual quality time together, time like their earlier bear game play. Cadance and Shining Armor wrap up their own visit to Spearhead's art show. The royal couple has reached that apart from their child for too long stage of everything reminds them of their kid. Spearhead sends them on their way, and again, kudos to Spearhead. Dude's got his head on straight when it comes to art and to his friendships with Shining and Cadance. I can respect that. Then the wrap-up and the moral. A sweet ending to an adorable story, followed by some Spike being awesome action back at the hospital, complete with apology cake. Well, 3 episodes in, and this season is still packed with good episodes. Still no big action-y, adventure-y epics or big set pieces with new locales, But this homey, smaller-scale, personal look at the ponies, this intimate focus on the personality and feelings and internal development, growth, or exploration of character, these are stories I like too. These are the sort of stories that My Little Pony can tell well. And, as this season is showing, these are stories that the show continues to deliver with fun, touching, feelsy, and laugh-out-loud enjoyment. May they keep up the good work. If you wish to see my full reaction to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 7, Episode 3, titled A Flurry of Emotions, the link, as I mentioned earlier, is in the description. Feel free to leave any comments or likes for that reaction here on this Afterthoughts review. And until next time, as always, kindly remember, y'all are awesome. Stay awesome.